around the Cleveland Browns office as we are 3 weeks away from training camp. We're going to discuss those now. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd, and I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. I appreciate the everyday crowd. Be more like the everyday crowd. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available. It is always free wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Before we get into this, obviously some sad news out of Berea. Swagger Jr. has gone to cross over the Rainbow Bridge, I believe is what they call for animals, that move on. Certainly a fixture around the organization. It's animals. Who doesn't love animals? They're the best. Only one drawback about animals and pets is, unfortunately, they're not around forever. But to SJ, all the best. And, we'll look, in the months, see, what's on the horizon for the Cleveland Browns as far as having the certain swagger of swagger. But we were about 3 weeks away from reporting for training camp, and there's certainly questions. And we're going to do this just on the offensive side here today. Regarding, the offensive side of the ball, you broke these down into what I feel are the three most important questions. There certainly would be some questions upon questions, but we'll have to go with that for now. Health on the offensive side of the ball is obviously a major talking point for the Cleveland Browns right now. We all know, Deshaun Watson and the season ending very, very prematurely last year, after his best day as a Cleveland Brown and a huge victory in Baltimore over the Ravens, and finding out that the shoulder was not safe. We all know Deshaun wanted to try and play through it. We know that doctors basically told him that nobody was going to sign off on it. And he was going to have the procedure and his season was going to be done. That was just the way it was going to be. There was no true timetable as to when Deshaun would start returning to activities or, being deemed 100%, which he has still not been deemed 100% yet to this point. We had all the, overreactions, underreactions, and everything in between. As the Browns started to go through, OTAs, then started to go through mandatory mini camp, and we got to see Deshaun early in OTAs and trips and drabs, and certainly was on a throwing program. Day on. Actually, in the beginning, it was probably a day on, 2-3 days off. Then we certainly got to the point of mandatory mini camps where he was close to participating almost every day. Day on, day off, day on, day off. And, the whole grand plan. And, I keep telling everybody this, and I kept saying everybody this is, I don't know what the overreaction is about, February, March, April. That made no sense. Never got it. Never understood it. It was all about, when Deshaun would be ready for hopefully July, certainly August, and most certainly September 10th at home against the Dallas Cowboys. Still a lot to be seen there, and I think the one thing that's probably going to have everybody rattle their cages even further this summer is if Deshaun does not participate in preseason games. Browns will only have 3 preseason games this year. I wouldn't be stunned if he doesn't participate in any of them, which should make for, a fun August here as far as, the overreactions and underreactions of fans and media. Certainly Nick Chubb, big talking point. As far as his recovery, and look, we're starting to hear the positive things, and starting to make further and further progress for Nick Chubb, which is all you can hope for at this point. We all know how difficult that injury was last year. Knowing Nick and knowing what he'd already been through in his career, what a vital part of this organization, this team, this offense he's always been, and the team did not necessarily pick it up as good as they could have in the run game. A lot of that was due to further injuries, certainly within the offensive line. A lot of people, questioned Jerome Ford. I am not one of those people. So the question certainly, is when Nick would be available. Week 1, I don't think is going to happen. I think Nick is going to start the regular season most likely on the physically unable to perform list, because I just think it would be foolish, honestly, to think that Nick Chubb is going to give you 17 regular season games and then hopefully 2 playoff games in a Super Bowl. I think it's foolish to think that Nick Chubb can give you 20 games this season. So I think he would be a late starter to the 2024 season. Browns certainly, made other moves at the running back position, with Foreman, with Naheem Hines. You have Jerome Ford here. But, as far as Nick and his availability and when Nick Chubb returns like Nick Chubb, certainly things that are, certainly solid talking points at this point for number 24. Offensive line here as well. Week 1, Jack Conklin goes down. His season over basically before it started. We got to see the emergence of just a talented young player at tackle in DeJuan Jones. Yes, he may not be able to do everything as far as being a run blocker, and just, a big man can only get so small. So to think DeJuan Jones can get himself, smaller and tinier and get into creases, and sometimes it's just really, really hard to ask, basically Zeus to be Napoleon, I guess. But, certainly was a good run for DeJuan before he ended up missing the rest of the season. And, of course, Jedrick Wills also missing the rest of the entire 2023 season. So you have 3 pretty good offensive tackles. Jack Conklin is by far their best, 2-time All-Pro. Jedrick Wills, going to be a very, very interesting year for Jedrick, playing on his 5th-year option, no future money. Fair to say that he probably has not lived up to his number 10 overall draft selection when the Browns first took him, the first Browns draft choice of the Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski regime. DeJuan Jones, if everybody's healthy in front of him, Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin, where does that leave DeJuan Jones essentially in year 2? Certainly a question, certainly a talking point. But the health of the offensive line, and you can't talk about it, and that Ethan Posick missed some time. Joel certainly was banged up. Certainly Wyatt Taylor, goes through his fair of physical ailments as the season goes on. So it's big. It's big, and we're going to get more to the offensive line when we get to segment 3. But I don't have that as the second biggest question for the Browns this offseason. I do have a bigger one as the second biggest question for the Browns offense this offseason. Stick around. We'll talk about it. This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Comparison is the thief of joy. We live in this world. Social media is so big. Everybody, thinks that their life is lesser because of what people are showing or sharing, which could be real, could be 100% fake on social media accounts. We spend so much time at looking at others live their lives. Maybe we don't spend enough time living our own. It might look like they have everything together on their Instagram, but in reality, they probably don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. We got the summertime. We got the pool in the backyard. The kids are having their friends over. I'm cooking on the grill every day. It's a good summer so far. I ain't worried about keeping up with the Joneses. I got a hard enough time keeping up with the Lloyds. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge if it's just not working out. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate everybody that makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, start getting those numbers back up. Look, we talk about mental health. I just needed a little time, man. After 7+ years and everything that's gone in the last 6 months of my life, needed a little time. But it's good to be back here with all of you. So join the everyday crowd. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. Now, the offensive line certainly would have qualified as his own question as we are talking the top 3 burning questions of the Cleveland Browns offense heading into training camp. But in my opinion, there is a little bit bigger to talk about with the offensive line. But again, that will be segment 3. Number 2, I think it's a little bit bigger than I probably originally gave it credit for. And, that's where the Amari Cooper, contract and wanting an extension, what the Browns are willing to give to Amari Cooper, and where they currently are 3 weeks out of training camp. None of this has ever been anything to deny what Amari has done since he's been here with the Browns. The numbers speak for themselves. The fact that in 2022, he played with, of course, Jacoby Brissett. He played with, of course, Deshaun Watson. In 2023, he played with Deshaun Watson. He played with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He played with P.J. Walker. He played with Joe Flacco, and keep reversing those names in and out because it almost seemed almost every week until about December that it was a different quarterback that was playing for the Cleveland Browns every week. You've got to give the guy his due for the numbers he put up during those times, playing with all those different quarterbacks. But the fact of the reality is Amari Cooper is now 30 years old. And I've mentioned other places, the age 30 is very similar to, when Leonardo DiCaprio's girlfriends turned 25. The age 30 for wide receiver in the NFL, it's a bugaboo. It's a kiss of death. Teams do not want to, go much further than that. Amari's certainly well within his right. And, looking at the way the wide receiver market is currently working in the NFL, he absolutely deserves more money. He deserves an extension. Does that mean the Cleveland Browns have to give it to him or have to give in and just give him whatever he wants? No, they don't. And, I've talked about this again some other times that maybe we should have seen this all coming, because right after the trade for Amari Cooper, the Browns then went on and started drafting a lot of receivers. David Bell. Then the following offseason, he brought in Elijah Moore and he brought in Cedric Tillman. This offseason, he brought in Jerry Jeudy, drafted Thrash. So, I mean, it's not like, the Browns, were saying at any given time that, Amari Cooper's going to retire, the Cleveland Brown. That is something they never said, something they never talked about. Do I think Amari Cooper is the type of guy that's going to sit down on his team? Nope. Just does not seem the way he's wired. I've said many times he is not like most wide receivers in the NFL today. There's no diva to him in any way whatsoever. He's one of the more quieter superstars on the offensive side of the ball. It's usually, superstars on offense in the NFL. They're loud, they're boisterous. They're constantly, talking about themselves, boistering what they've done. It's an ego thing. And, I love it. You guys know I love it. You guys know the way I roll. But it is refreshing to have somebody like Amari Cooper who's got more of a mindset like Nick Chubb, where it's just kind of, hey, roll with the punches. There was something that maybe came out today that was out, through a friend. And this is the part I can't stand about this stuff. And this is, where it got tough with the Jarvis Landry time and even Odell and the cryptic tweets and the what does this mean on their social media accounts. Nobody's got time for that nonsense. But apparently there was it was a message put out on a social media account that was a friend of Amari Cooper's. And it was basically, pleading Amari Cooper's case, which we all know. We all know. Amari Cooper has no guaranteed money coming to him after this 2024 season at 30 years old, after having back-to-back 1,200-yard seasons. Not denying it in any way whatsoever. He is certainly well within his right, and he certainly deserves more money. The market, you are what the market dictates. And for, what some of these guys got last year, you certainly, you look at a contract like Gabe Davis, and if I'm Amari Cooper, I want more money coming to me after this season. Totally happy with the money I've got coming to me this year, but, the old Caddyshack line, a little something for the effort. So you really can feel for where Amari is. You can certainly understand the Browns' pause and hesitation. Browns have a couple offensive linemen over the age of 30 years old. And we saw that there were some struggles for them last year. And this is, things that can hamper a lot of NFL teams is starting to guarantee money to guys after a certain age And Father Time catches up with us all. It's it's a fact. Father Time undefeated, doesn't lose. So for Cleveland, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and it certainly got put out there a little bit afterwards, that Cleveland is more than content to satisfying Amari Cooper's wishes for more money and a little bit more, guaranteed and security for 2025. But they don't seem to want to go much further than that. And it's not saying that if they did and Amari balled out in 24 and still had a really good year in 25, that they would find a way to make it work afterwards. But but giving long-term money to players of a certain age becomes a real possible liability. Because guess what? If it doesn't work out, they do get banged up. The depth and the youth that you are slowing the development on by paying these guys, because with a certain amount of money to Amari Cooper means you're basically dictating X amount of targets. And how can you do both things? How can you keep the top guy happy? And look, Amari doesn't get Justin Jefferson amount of targets. He doesn't. But once you start paying him even more money, you're going to want more opportunity if you are Amari Cooper. But now how do I develop the guys I have around him? The Browns think Jerry Jeudy's going to be a fantastic player. They already put the extension there for Jerry. So how do they guarantee Jerry's going to play and Jerry's going to perform the way they feel Jerry can perform? Elijah Moore's in a contract year. He's in the same boat Amari Cooper is. Certainly he made the money Amari Cooper has in his league, but he's in that same boat. Like, I want the opportunity to, get as many balls as I can to hopefully, increase my net worth on the open market. You're trying to develop Cedric Tillman. You're still trying to find maybe a consistent role for a guy like David Bell. Jamar Thrash has been a really interesting guy to this point. He's really turned some heads through, rookie camp, OTAs, certainly through mandatory mini camp, kind of catching everything that's coming his way. And, how do you appease everybody in this situation? Because it's not just the receivers and Amari Cooper, but it's also your coaching staff. They want to see, your scouting department wants to see the development of the players that they thought so highly of to push you to draft. But will that opportunity come? This is going to be a game that's going to go on. It's going to go on for the rest of the summer. I'm not even sure if it's going to be done by training camp, because it seems Amari Cooper's camp is pretty stout on wanting 2 more years of guaranteed money, where the Cleveland Browns are pretty much set in their belief that they will commit to 2025 and they will not commit any further. My guess, at some point he gets done with guaranteed money for 2025 and a player option for 2026, which allows Amari Cooper to hold the cards as to what he could possibly be paid in 2026, whether it is from the Cleveland Browns or from somebody else within the NFL. That is 2 burning questions to this point for the Cleveland Browns offense before training camp. We're going to get to the third one. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Everybody, sit still. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. And the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. I appreciate you all so much for making Locked On Browns your first listen. And again, every now and then, look, it was 7 years. And if nobody knows, my wife and her cancer scare, I just got to the point where I hit June. And this, of course, came after we moved in the fall and now setting up a new house for the spring. So I had nothing, guys. I was absolutely toast. And I apologize. But as you can see, I'm in a better place. You can see I'm feeling my oats. I'm enjoying myself again. I really just needed to reset the batteries a little bit. But the Everyday Crowd, they're awesome. Join the Everyday Crowd. And the best way to join the Everyday Crowd and be an everyday-er is by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. We're talking Cleveland Browns. 3 burning questions on the offensive side of the ball ahead of 2024 training camp. We've talked the health and a lot of players coming off injury, season-ending injury on the offensive side of the ball. We talked about the Amari Cooper situation. But with health coming, hopefully, back to the offensive line, does that also mean the offensive line is going to return to what they've been, to what they were? You got to keep in mind, this offensive line has got a brand new coach in Andy Dickerson. I really thought it was maybe the correct time, certainly, because, the offense, with the issues they had last year, the offensive line, a lot of the injuries, and of course with Bill Callahan in this weird situation where, going to coach work for his son, the Browns certainly had, maybe the time was, hey, if Bill's not going to spend the rest of his time here in Cleveland and then eventually retire, there's going to be a time where Bill Callahan is not the offensive line coach for the Cleveland Browns. And coming off a year last year, and look, a lot of it was due to injury. A lot of it sometimes was really some really put together work. The offensive line play in that second Raven game where the Browns won, starting your 4th and 5th offensive tackles, just basically telling the Ravens, we're going to run the ball over the right side, and until you do something about it, we're going to continue to do it. But, can Joel Bitonio, if he gets healthier, is he still top 2, top 3, top 4 offensive guard in the NFL? I have to see. Again, Father Time. He don't usually lose. Ethan Posick missed some time. Is Ethan Posick going to be good to go? Is he going to continue his great play from 2 seasons ago and solid play last year when he was healthy? Wyatt Teller. Again, Wyatt Teller's had, when Wyatt Teller has been almost healthy the entire season, Wyatt Teller is one of the top right guards in the NFL. When Wyatt Teller's out there and he's hampered and he's injured, obviously his play suffers. We all can understand. The tackle play. Can you get the best season out of Jedrick Wills yet? And look, if that's enough and he go cashes in the offseason somewhere else, I'm fine with that. Totally cool. Browns have draft picks. Browns could always kick DeJuan Jones to the left tackle. Well, again, now Jack Conklin. Now you're talking Jack Conklin is basically a guy that's been year in, year out. Year in, year out, year in, year out, year in, year out. When Jack Conklin is healthy and plays almost every game, he's an all-pro. It's not lip service. It's true. It's a fact. He's an all-pro. You have this burgeoning young talent in DeJuan Jones, where if you want to become a team that's going to throw the ball, which we all know is pretty going to be the case, that the Cleveland Browns are going to toss the pill a lot. You want quality tackle play. Well, DeJuan Jones is that guy. Talk about the depth. Zach Zinter. Certainly, the undrafted free agent, Cohen from Miami. You're kind of praying he becomes that next Michael Dunn guy that's been around forever. Zach Zinter, what spot are you grooming him for? Which opening comes first? Is it the Wyatt Teller spot? Is it the Joel Bitonio spot? When do you find, was at the time where Zach Zinter all of a sudden gets to, basically put his name in there and say, hey, I am the man right now. So have that. Luke Whippler, is he the center of the future? You do have a Super Bowl winning starting center, formerly from the Los Angeles Rams, and Brian Allen on this roster. Certainly seems odd that he's here, that they even made that move. But again, maybe Ethan Posick's not going to play a lot this summer, but you could get a guy like Allen in there. And if he shows really, really well, and all of a sudden you find a team hard on their luck in summer because they lost their starting center, or, they're trying a young center that's just not working the way they're hoping it to. You got a guy that you can just you can unload a guy that's not going to make your roster, who could be a starting center, probably 15, 20 teams in the NFL, and get yet another draft choice. So there is a lot. There's certainly a lot here with the offensive line. And as much as, everybody wants to talk about the injuries and how they were banged up last year, the question is, with new offensive line coach Andy Dickerson, can this unit return to what they had been pretty much almost every season up until last season under the Kevin Stefanski, offensive-led regime? They were top 3, 4, 5 offensive line every single season, year in, year out. Jack Conklin, Pro Bowl. Joe Bitonio, Pro Bowl. Wyatt Teller, Pro Bowl. They've had quality play from their offensive line. Last year took a step back. Did some of it have to do with revolving door at quarterback, missing, Nick Chubb, who just was just like a needle in a groove, Nick Chubb, with the offensive line for the previous 3 seasons. So they kind of lost the guy that, they knew so well, but yet were known so well by Nick Chubb. So, as the health returns, does this unit return to be a top unit here in 2025 and 2024? That is going to be a big, big question for this team in 2024. But your 3 burning questions for the Cleveland Browns offense ahead of 2024 training camp: the health of DW, Chubb, the offensive line; the Amari Cooper contract situation. Does it linger? Does it cause any issues? And trying to find that balance between making Cooper happy, but also developing all the young guys you have in that room as well. And as the offensive line gets healthy, will they return to being one of the top units in the NFL? I am Jeff Lloyd. I appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd is a bunch of filthy animals, but they're my filthy animals. Become a filthy animal. Become an everydayer. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It is always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.